Welcome back, everyone. So today let's talk about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the sixth Harry Potter book and movie, and the second one directed by David Yates. And again, like Goblet of Fire and like Order of the Phoenix, this one had a lot of omissions, so I'm going to briefly talk about the omissions in this movie before I talk about the actual movie and what I love about it, because I love this movie, again, just like every one of them. I feel like every single one of these movies gets better. Because I'm just so fascinated with the world and love the characters, and just this one I feel like every single time I watch these movies they keep getting better in each film. So Half-Blood Prince, I think, had a lot of omissions to it where even though the movie flows very well, it's a very well done movie, there are a lot of things out of this that are cut out and either are kind of briefly mentioned or put into a different way throughout Deathly Hallows, because this one affects Deathly Hallows a lot, where like the script for this movie was being made before Deathly Hallows was released. So it's funny to see that this had a lot of omissions, and in Deathly Hallows they changed stuff up, but they made it to where it still connects, but it's just so different. This is definitely another different iteration, and it's not very faithful to the novel. But as a movie, this is really a well done movie, like all of them, and I think it flows incredibly well. And these characters are great, the acting's great, everything about it again is great. But there's a lot of omissions to it. Like there's so many Voldemort memories that Harry sees in the book that are not present. There's only two, and honestly, the way that they did it seems like a reasonable way to go for a 2.5 hour movie that couldn't have been made longer. I mean, it could have, but people would have been like, oh, it's 3 hours long. So the omissions in this movie aren't, like, it's annoying that they're gone, like Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix, but this movie still flows very well. So, like, there's the Voldemort scenes that are gone, like young memories of him, one especially where he gets the ring, and one where he gets the diadem. So there are a lot of stuff that is taken out of this like that. And then the way that the movie flows is great, but like the biggest thing I've noticed is the memories that are gone. And of course Dobby and Winky are gone again, those characters. There's not much of Lupin and Tonks in the Order of the Phoenix. Like they're not in this as much like as in the book. They're in it a lot more in the book. Mundungus Fletcher, who was introduced in 5, isn't in this movie either. He's introduced in the next one. So he's omitted too. And there's just a lot of omissions to it, but still, despite that, it still flows very well. It's just not, they couldn't have made it a faithful adaptation without making it 2 parts, which I understand why they didn't. So those omissions, it's sad that they're gone, but still, this is a great movie despite that. So I'm going to start out with how I did with all these other reviews and just tell kind of the plot and things I love about it as I go along. But this is incredible, again, like the other ones. I love this fantastic opening, which does a incredible job of showing a scene that was in Order of the Phoenix that we didn't see, where Harry and Dumbledore, after Voldemort escaped in the Ministry of Magic, they are sitting there while the paparazzi is like taking pictures of them, or like whatever the equivalent of a magic paparazzi is, like all the newspaper people, like they're all taking pictures to send the news out that Voldemort is back. And it's got an incredible shot of where it starts out from the backside of Harry just sitting there or standing there, and then Dumbledore puts his arm over Harry's shoulder, and it just cuts to a shot of Harry's sad eyes, like he is. This literally just happened to where Sirius just died. He watched him die, and he saw Voldemort come back, so Harry is distraught. And that is a perfect way to show how Harry feels, because he just lost his only family he only ever has now, his godfather, and he barely knew him. So I love that opening. It's such a emotional scene that works perfectly. And I love how after that, this one is more action-oriented than the book, because the book is very more. There's an action scene at the end of the book, but it's not in the movie, and there's more action scenes in the movie overall. But opening in this movie is different. Where in the book, it was a Muggle prime minister like talking to, I think, Kingsley Shacklebolt about like the events of like, or no, maybe it was Fudge. Maybe talking about the events of this bridge collapse, which we see in this movie. They have the actual bridge collapse in the movie instead of that. And then the Dursleys don't appear again, and Harry is talking to this cute girl, and Dumbledore takes him away. And then they go to see Horace Slughorn, this guy who used to be potions master at Hogwarts. Dumbledore set out with Harry to collect him and to send him with him to Hogwarts for some reason, which we'll explain later. But I love how that scene where he's talking to him, and Slughorn has these pictures of a lot of his former classmates that he loved, and he showed his mother Lily in the picture, part of the Slug Club, which Harry will be later in the movie, and it's a really great emotional moment because Slughorn tells about her, and then he refers to Regulus Black, a character that we did not know about in the movies, that is Sirius's brother. And that's important for later, but I like that it shows Sirius's brother in the picture, and it's cool that we get more information on him, or more on Sirius's family. So I really love that scene, and I love whenever Harry gets to the Weasleys. This is where this movie is very romantic oriented than the other ones. Like, this is very much, a lot of ways, a love story, this movie, and in a lot of ways with these characters. Because whenever Harry makes it, like, Dumbledore sends him to the Burrow and sees the Weasleys, and then Ginny comes in, they have a romantic moment where, like, they've actually, like, started gaining feelings for each other, and it's really sweet and really nice. And they come in and they have a hug, and, like, they look at each other, like, and then Ron and Hermione come in and they explain, like what's been going on in the summer. But I love scenes like that where, like, it's very subtle with the romantic things with Ginny and Harry, but I think it's really good. And then Ron and Hermione, it's building up with them too and having a romantic relationship. And then I love how after this we get the scene, which I think was the first thing after the first chapter of the book, where, like, Narcissa Malfoy, Malfoy's mother, and Bellatrix, her sister, they go to Snape to have the unbreakable vow for something that Lord Voldemort has sent Draco Malfoy to do. He has got a mission. So I really thought that's such a great thing that, like, Snape, you don't know what his true intentions are, because they say he's on Dumbledore's side, but then he is on Voldemort's side as well. So nobody knows what the real truth is on the matter. And even Bellatrix Lestrange is kind of questioning what side is he on? Like, you can't trust him. But Narcissa says the Dark Lord trusts him, so she trusts him. And this is the first introduction of Malfoy's mother in the movies. She was in, like, I think 4 and 5 before, but in the books. But I really liked her character. I like that this character is not as evil as Lucius or Draco. Like, she's just caring for her kid. Like, she wants her kid to not be killed because Voldemort set him up for something that could make him fail. So I really love that she went to Snape and they did the unbreakable vow, which it's explained later in the movie that if you make an unbreakable vow, if you fail that, you die. So it's really serious that Snape is on, like, what his alliance is for the sides, because, like, the way he makes this vow, it's like, you know that he's on Voldemort's side. Like, that makes sense. But I really love that. And then I love how whenever they're down in Diagon Alley and Fred and George now at their shop, because of Harry's winnings from Goblet of Fire, at least in the books. In the movies they didn't explain it, but Harry gave the winnings away in Goblet of Fire to Fred and George. And they opened up their shop, and that's the only shop open now, basically, down in Diagon Alley, because the Death Eaters came in and took Ollivander, and his wand shop is down. So every other store is kind of ransacked and destroyed because the Death Eaters are at large. And I love that scene, and I love how after this they go, like, Harry, Ron, and Hermione see Malfoy and his mother go into Flourish and Blots. What is it? I forgot what the store is that they're in, but it's the Nocturne Alley store. And And they go there, and they have this initiation thing that Harry thinks means he's a Death Eater. Like, he thinks Malfoy is a full-on Death Eater. Like, he's finally done it, like his father is. It makes sense. And he talks to Hermione and Ron about it like it makes sense. It's an initiation. Like, he's there to become this thing that, like, his father is. So I really like that a lot. And I like that Harry is so desperate to figure it out. He goes and spies on Malfoy at the train, and wearing the invisibility cloak, but then Draco stays behind while everybody leaves, then stuns Harry, kicks him in the face, breaks his nose, and puts his cloak back on and says that was for my father, because his father's now imprisoned after the events of 5, because they had the court hearing of, like, is he the Death Eater or not, because he had his alliances to Voldemort. But Malfoy leaves him on the train, and in this version, Luna finds Harry using those magic glasses she has, which is really cool. It's great seeing Luna again in this movie. I think she's another just fine performance from Ivana Lynch. Like, she's just such a nice, whimsical character. And she's so likable and so sweet that I really love her character. And I love that they added more scenes with her in this movie. And then Dumbledore has this speech, of course, at the beginning of the year, and saying, like, dark forces every second of the day now are attempting to penetrate these walls, but in the end, their greatest weapon is you. And he even has orders all around the school, like everywhere, to have real protection to make sure that these kids are fine. But I really love that it just incites that danger is completely near, like everybody's close to danger. But so I love that, and I love how, since Slughorn is convinced to come back, we have that potions class scene where Ron and Harry go and do potions, and Harry gets this ratty old potions book, and Slughorn promises whoever wins today, whoever gets the best concoction gets the Felix Felicis, which is liquid luck, which literally give you the most luck in the world. Like, you can do nothing wrong after you drink it for a while. And Harry, using that ratty old book by the Half-Blood Prince, as the book is written, as the book says in the somebody wrote that this is the property of the Half-Blood Prince. Harry uses that, and this Half-Blood Prince has written a different thing on each one of the instructions, so he gets it perfect, this file that they're creating. So Harry gets the Felix Felicis, and then he starts becoming obsessed about this book. Like, he just thinks it's a really cool book, as it gives, I don't know, like, it's kind of an obsession thing with him in this book, and he likes it for some reason. And I think the book explained it more, but what they say in the movie, like, oh, you become obsessed with that book, you're reading it every night. And I really like that. And I like how then we get our first memory of Voldemort, where Dumbledore summons Harry, and he sees the memory of Tom Riddle whenever the memory of Tom Riddle whenever Dumbledore first meets him. And it's a really good scene, because that kid is really creepy who plays young Voldemort, or the youngest Voldemort in this movie, youngest Tom Riddle. But he talks about how he can do things, he can move things without he can move things around, he can torture people, he can talk to snakes, and it's weird because Dumbledore, this guy is so evil already, he's a little kid, and you know how demented he is, but Dumbledore gives him hope, like, I can fix this kid. And he even magically brings up these items that Tom stole from kids, and then Dumbledore says, like, thievery will not be allowed at Hogwarts, Tom, and then you'll learn how to control your magic. And then at the end of the memory, he says, like, I can speak to snakes too. Is that normal for a person like me? And then it cuts away, and the end of that memory happens where it shows a picture of the cave. It shows 7 seashells. Hint. And it was a good first memory of showing Tom Riddle, even though this is only one of 2 in the movie, because there's like 5 or 6 in the book. But I really like that. I just like that first introduction of Dumbledore and Voldemort meeting head on. That's really cool. And I like how he's got, like, Dumbledore has the other memory, the second memory, where it's butchered to where Harry's going to, like, it's butchered in where, like, the memory is tainted, where, like, it won't fully give the memory, it'll blur out the dialogue. whenever they see this memory. So like Harry has to collect Slughorn because Slughorn loves just different people with different abilities, like fun, like for example, like people who are ambitious, people who are clever, people who are special, and Dumbledore says to him early in the movie that Slughorn will want to collect you and have him part of his like clubs and stuff because you're a famous person, you've done great things. So Harry has to try to get Slughorn to give the memory, like the full memory, not the butchered one that he has, or that Dumbledore already has. So I really like that, and I love how Quidditch returns in this movie because it was completely absent from Order of the Phoenix. Even though in the books it was in the book Order of the Phoenix, it was really prevalent. But and they even mentioned like if you weren't in the tryouts last year, that doesn't mean you'll be in this year's tryouts. Like Harry mentions that, so like it was in the movie, but it just wasn't shown, I guess. And I guess it makes sense because in the movie, in the book, it's like Umbridge took away Quidditch pretty quick too, like everything else. So, and I like too that this one, because the Quidditch was omitted from Order of the Phoenix, the movie, and this one, the movie of Half-Blood Prince, they give Ron this kind of not the same plot, but like they give Ron this cool. Like, he's just become a good Quidditch player, as, like, in Order of the Phoenix, he became a good Quidditch player after struggling and being made fun of. And I like how in this one he's a pro at it. So that's really cool that they kind of connected that, even though it's not in the last movie. So, I like the Quidditch scenes. I like seeing the return of them. We had Quidditch matches in the first 3 movies, and the Goblet of Fire, it was of course canceled because of the Triwizard Tournament. And Harry used the broomstick, the firebolt, the dragon first task, but there was an actual Quidditch. In this one, I'm glad there's Quidditch back. And then we get this great scene where, like, Katie Bell, this girl I think it's Harry's class in this version. In the book, she might be a year older, but Katie Bell gets possessed by this necklace, and her friend Leanne's like, I told her not to touch it, and then, like, you see Katie Bell being flown up in the air, flailing around, being possessed. And Harry immediately thinks it's Malfoy and tells that to McGonagall and Snape, and McGonagall says, that is a very serious accusation. And then Snape just says, your proof? And then Harry just says, I just know. And then Snape just says, you just know. Like, I love every line Alan Rickman has, and that's a great line. But I really like that. Like, Harry knows that it is Malfoy's fault. He knows that Malfoy is doing this because even though he didn't physically see the evidence that he is a Death Eater, he knows he is going to be in his father's footsteps. He is going to be doing the same thing. And then I love this great character moment. This great dinner scene with these great character moments where Slughorn, they're part of the Slug Club now, like Harry and Hermione, where they're all just talking about like their lives. Like, it's a funny scene where like Slughorn says like, Hermione, what do your parents do in the Muggle world? And then Hermione says, my parents are dentists. And then everybody looks at her like, because they don't understand what that is. And then she just says, they tend to people's teeth. And then Slughorn goes, oh, so do you consider that a dangerous profession? And she says, no, but like, one time this one boy bit my dad's hand, and he got 10 stitches. And then everybody, again, gave her a look like, because they didn't know what stitches are either. I think that's really funny. And I think that's just a great character moment. And just these characters are great in that scene. And I love how Ginny comes into the scene late because she and Dean Thomas are fighting again because they've been in a relationship, even though she wants Harry. She comes in, and then Harry stands up while she's standing up, and everybody's sitting down, and they just look at each other. And then he just sits down awkwardly again, and I thought it was a great character moment again, because he likes her and she likes him, but I love how he stood up and then just sat right down, like, awkwardly, but it makes sense when you're in love, like, you're gonna do something stupid like that on accident. I think that's great. So I really love that dinner scene, and I love how Cormac McLagan is hitting on Hermione hardcore, like just sucking off like he's eating cake or something, and he's just going like that and just looking at her, and she just like she doesn't know what to think because she thinks he's just an airhead. And I really like that a lot. And then Lavender Brown, like, she keeps flirting with Ron, and then they become boyfriend and girlfriend. And she was just insane. She's just a crazy girl who's in love, and she's just kind of over the top, but in a way, not like her performance, but over the top as in this character is just silly, where she's so infatuated with Ron, like, and she's 16, so that's what makes it funny. But this movie does have a lot of romantic moments and a lot of heartbreaks, and I think that this is the most romantic one out of all of them, and that's totally fine, because these characters, I think it warranted this much time with all of them that they finally are gaining love. They're 16, so they're finally gaining a relationship with people. So I think that's great. And I love how we have another Slug Club, like, party, and then Malfoy, like, Filch finds Malfoy and says, like, he has been stowing away upstairs, saying he was invited to the party. And then Snape, who's at the party too, says, I'll escort him out. And Snape seems kind of angry, and then Harry goes out and listens to this conversation, but Malfoy and Snape have this argument where, like, Snape says, what are you doing? I gave the unbreakable vow. And Malfoy just says, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. He chose me. I'm the one who was chosen. Let me do it. And then I love how Snape just reacts in a way like, you can't do this on your own, basically. He doesn't say that, but it's implied, like he's thinking that, like, you can't do this on your own. This is Lord Voldemort. And then Harry's just listening to that, and then that shows to the train ride after this happens. Whenever Harry goes back to the Burrow with Ron for the holidays, there's this scene where Ron's explaining to Harry, like, if you break an unbreakable vow, you die, and because Snape mentioned that to Malfoy, like, so Harry is really wondering what is going on, because Snape made an unbreakable vow for something. So it must be extremely important if you're risking your life for it. And then I like how at the Burrow you get this great scene with Arthur Weasley where he talks to Harry about a vanishing cabinet, which is what Malfoy had at Bergen and Bork's. That's what it's called. That store in Nocturne Alley. But it's a vanishing cabinet where there are twins, where you can go through one, escape to the other one, and it was all the rage whenever Voldemort was big. So I think that's cool. That's a cool plot device to where that's how Malfoy will get everybody into the school. And then we get the fight at the Burrow, which was not in the book. This is just a completely added in new thing, which I thought was really thrilling, really great. Because they run into, like, they run into the fields while Bellatrix and Fenrir Greyback appear, and they try to get Harry and Ginny, because Ginny chases after Harry, and they fight in these in this area where it's really cool, where, like, there's all these areas of grasslands where, like, they could be hiding, and Ginny and Harry find each other but appear in a little water puddle, like, in between all of this, circled around everything, so they could be anywhere, these two Death Eaters, and, like, they have this great fight. But then Bellatrix and Fenrir escape, and then they start burning down the Weasley house, and it's so sad, and it's horrible, but, like, even though in the next movie the Weasley house is still standing, I guess that means that they just put out the fire enough and rebuilt, but, man, it just was really sad, like a really sad scene to see them getting their house burnt. And I really like how after this Harry figures out for sure, because Katie comes back and is normal, that she says, I don't know who cursed me, and then Harry looks around and Malfoy's staring at them, so he knows that's another hint, he knows Malfoy did it. And he learned this curse from the Half-Blood Prince's book, Sectum Sempra. So he goes to follow Malfoy. Malfoy's crying in the bathroom, like, freaking out, because if you realize what he's going through, like, this situation of him trying to do this horrible thing that he's going to have to do in the end of the movie. So Harry runs in after when Malfoy's crying in the bathroom and just says, you hexed her, didn't you, Malfoy? And they start throwing curses, and then Harry throws a Sectum Sempra at Malfoy, which gives cuts all over Malfoy's body where he starts bleeding everywhere. And Snape runs in at that moment and then does a reversal curse to where he's healed. But I just love that scene because it's implied for something later in the movie, but that's a great scene overall. And then Ginny and Harry and Ron talk to Harry straight up head on and are like, you need to get rid of the book. So then there's this fantastic scene, which is a fantastic romantic scene and a fantastic score, where in a fantastic moment of these characters where Ginny and Harry go to the room of requirement and are going to leave the book there, and Ginny tells Harry to close his eyes and she'll hide it. So he closes his eyes and he is just sitting there with his eyes closed, and then it, like, he's on this shot of the screen, and then she comes right in, and then they both get next to each other and kiss, and it's just with the score and with the characters, like, this was just an incredible scene, one of my favorite scenes in the whole franchise. Like, it just kind of, it was so warranted, and it was just so sweet and such a charming scene. Like, I really love that scene a lot. And then Harry realizes that you can use Felix Felicis to win over Slughorn to get the memory. So he does that. He goes to Hagrid's, who is doing a funeral for Aragog, who has died now, the spider from Chamber of Secrets. So he has died, and he and Slughorn and Hagrid have, like, Hagrid and Slughorn start drinking a lot, while Harry just is there having fun because he's got the liquid luck in him, so he's just happy about everything. And he goes and talks to Slughorn, like, about how his mother and how he would basically be betraying her if he didn't give Harry this memory, because he says to him that neither him nor Voldemort can live while the other survives, so you'd be insulting my mother if, like, you didn't give me this memory. And it's a great convincing way, and it's true in how he can convince him to give the memory to him. And then Slughorn does, and he goes immediately to Dumbledore, and you see the memory in full effect, like, not a butchered memory, where Tom Riddle's talking to Slughorn about Horcruxes and how you could split it into 7 pieces, splitting your soul by murdering people. And then you realize that that's what the case is, and the whole time. And Dumbledore explains this, that the diary, Tom Riddle's diary from Chamber of Secrets, was a Horcrux. That was part of Voldemort's soul. This ring that Dumbledore found, which didn't show the memories in the movie, but he shows him the ring in the movie. But he says how dark magic leaves traces, which is a great connection to how in Deathly Hallows they'll connect them, because they leave traces and not showing the memories of, like, some of these things happening. So they've got 2 Horcruxes down, and then they're going to go to find a third one, this locket, at this cave, which is a picture that was shown in the first memory of Tom Riddle. So Dumbledore and Harry go to this cave, and Dumbledore tells him, like, you do as I say completely, and no matter what, even if I'm a second away from dying or being injured, you do as I say. And I love right before they go to the cave, there's a scene where Snape says, wouldn't it ever cross your brilliant mind that I don't want to do this anymore? And Harry, they don't realize Harry's right there, but Harry's walking up and Snape says that line, and then Dumbledore says whether or not you want to or not is irrelevant. Like, you've got to do this. You've got to do this way. And then Snape sees Harry and walks out. But again, that gives another hint to what's going to happen later. So I just love that line. So like I said, they go into the cave. Dumbledore starts drinking this. I forgot what the term is for this water, but it's like, it tortures them. Like, it tortures them more and more every time he keeps drinking more of this vial. And then, like, he gets to the end and starts screaming, like, kill me, like Dumbledore. And you've never seen Dumbledore like this, and I love how it builds on his character. This always, for the most part, happy guy who is content and who is whimsical. You see, like, his human side, like his side of torture. Kill me, like, I did it, it's my fault. And he's talking about something later in the next movie that they'll talk about, but he's saying, I did it, it's my fault. And Harry does make him drink the whole vial after convincing him. But then after this happens, the Inferi, I think is what their names is, these reanimated skeletons come out of the water, and there are thousands of them just coming out of the water. And then they drag Harry in, and when all hope seems lost, Dumbledore, like, you see Harry fall into the water, and then there's a light of fire, like, shown through the water, and then you see Dumbledore has this, like, inferno spell, like, flying all around him, and it's incredible and epic, and just chilling moment. So they return to Hogwarts after this, and they got the locket. But you realize whenever they get there, that's whenever Draco Malfoy brings in the Dementors, Bellatrix, Fenrir, a couple other Dementors. Snape's there. On the astronomy tower, Harry and Dumbledore return, and they immediately return to where Dumbledore says go hide, and like he hides underneath the stairs of the astronomy tower, and Snape appears. All the Death Eaters appear because they came out of the cabinet, and I love the fact that you realize what Draco Malfoy's like mission from Voldemort is to kill Dumbledore, to murder him. And I love the fact that the Death Eaters even make fun of Malfoy because he hesitates, and then Fenrir says like he doesn't have the guts like his father. And then Bellatrix is like, do it! Come on, Draco, now! And like she just screams at him to do it. And Draco disarms Dumbledore by doing Expelliarmus, and like the wand flies out of his hand. So like, and Dumbledore makes it seem so easy. Like there's something that there's a reason why he did that. There might be a reason why he did that. But there's a great line where Dumbledore's talking to Draco, who is this character who is a horrible, mean character, but like he was born this way, and it humanized him more in this movie where he's gonna kill Dumbledore. And Dumbledore says to Draco, like, Draco, I used to know this boy who made all the wrong choices. Don't be like that. Like, don't do that. And then I love this fact that this humanizes Malfoy so much, where he says, like, don't you understand? I have to do this. I have to kill you. And he just starts crying. He says, oh, he's gonna kill me. And like it shows how much of a character Malfoy has changed from. Like, he's a mean character, but he grew from that. Like, he grew from being this kid from Lucius Malfoy, this Death Eater, like, who treats everybody inferior to him, like, and he's realizing through this task that Voldemort has given him, like, it's awful what he's going through. Like, he's dealing with the literal evil. God, I kind of stuttered over that. Literal evil. Or my tongue kind of stuttered over that. But I love that scene. That line is so great. And then Snape comes in and says no. And then Dumbledore just says, Severus, please. And then Snape does the Avada Kedavra curse and kills Dumbledore. And he falls off the astronomy tower. And then the Death Eaters leave. And then Harry sees this whole thing, loses it. The Death Eaters are getting off the grounds. And then you hear Harry in the background screaming to Snape, Snape, he trusted you! And then, like, he tries to attack Snape, but Snape keeps deflecting his attacks, and he says, fight back, you coward! Fight back! And then Bellatrix throws him off onto the ground, Harry, and and then Snape says, no, he belongs to the Dark Lord, because Bellatrix is gonna, like, attack him. And they light Hagrid's house on fire, even though Hagrid wasn't there. But then Snape comes up to him after he says Sectum Semper to Snape, like uses it as a curse. Snape just says, you dare use your curse, or your spells, my spells against me, Potter? That's right, for I am the Half-Blood Prince. And then he leaves, and in the book, it makes more of an impact, but in the movie, it's still a good impact. Like, in the book, it's like he reads this book and becomes obsessed with it and thinks of it kind of as a friend, this character, but then he realizes it's Snape at the end. And I guess it makes sense in the movie, too, but all this obsession over this book of this guy who he thought was so cool was Snape, who killed Dumbledore, did the worst thing ever. So Harry is now under more of a horrible thing than ever, like more of a horrible situation. And then we get a scene where I legitimately start tearing up. I'm like, this is so hard to watch. Where Snape and the Death Eaters leave. They're gone. And then Dumbledore, his body is down on the ground by the astronomy tower because he fell off of that tower. And everybody's out there crying. Harry just, like, puts his chest on Dumbledore, or his hand on Dumbledore's chest, just starts crying. And Ginny comes up and holds him and consoles him while everybody puts their wand up in unison and lights away the dark mark which Bellatrix let out, caused to show at the school. Like, she let out the dark mark after Dumbledore died. But everybody put their wands up in unison and drove it away. And it's just so moving, so incredibly sad with the score, with the emotions, with the acting. That scene of Dumbledore, like Harry crying over Dumbledore's body is so sad, and Ginny consoling him, and everybody putting their wands up in unison, so to drive away the dark mark, and just out of respect, like, it's so sad. And then Harry goes into Dumbledore's office after a while later, and McGonagall's in there, and she says, you know that Dumbledore, like, you meant a lot, you meant a lot to him. You meant a great deal to him. And it's just a great scene where, like, McGonagall, who's this character I love in all the movies, like, this is just a great human moment for her where she's just like, you know that you meant so much to him. And Harry just kind of looks at her and doesn't say anything, not out of disrespect, but out of, like, he doesn't know what to think. And then we get the final scene where they're up on the astronomy tower again. I think it's the astronomy tower. Ron, Harry, and Hermione. And you realize that the necklace is fake. So everything that Harry and Dumbledore did in the cave was not, like, for nothing. So Dumbledore died for nothing. And that is even more of a gut punch. And then they open up the necklace, and it's got a letter in it, and it says that this person took the real Horcrux and intends to destroy it as quick as they can. And their initials are R.A.B. And then Hermione's like, R.A.B.? And then Harry just says, no idea. And then like, they're talking about school next year, and Harry just says, I'm not coming back, Hermione. I've got to finish whatever Dumbledore started. And then Hermione just says, do you really think that you could do this by yourself? You can be so thick sometimes. You know you need us, Harry. And, like, they all three of them just stand and watch at the astronomy tower, and Harry just says how beautiful this place is. And then another heartbreaking thing is Fawkes the Phoenix gone after this moment. Like, Dumbledore dies, and then Fawkes flies away, and they just watch him fly away at the end of the movie, and that's how the movie ends. It just ends on such a bittersweet note that's horribly sad. Even though it's not like Seven, which is the saddest movie, or the saddest movies and books, book out of all of them. But this is just such a sad way to end the film. It's so heartbreaking and so emotionally well captivating. Just it blows me away, and how I feel so much for these characters and so much for the situation. So yeah, I was so, man, just rewatching this one again. Every time I watch them, they get better every time. Even though I love them all, I think they're all incredible movies, but man, fuck, this is so good. Love rewatching this one. Just such a great movie. So thank you guys so much for watching. Next up, I will talk about Deathly Hallows 1 and 2, which I am incredibly excited for, but they will be long videos as well, because I will be having so much to talk about. So thank you guys so much for watching, if you stayed this long, and stay tuned for Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2.